Hi BookTube, welcome to a tag video. I am doing the BookTube embarrassment tag. This tag was created by Andy at Really Random Reads. I watched this video and I remember thinking at the time, oh Andy, tag me, tag me, tag me. Okay, you didn't tag me, Andy. Not the end of the world, because Katrina, I think you tagged Katrina at Ms. Peepers-Reading-Corner. She tagged me, so it worked out perfectly. I love the questions, and I really wanted to do them. So let's start with question number 1. Question 1 is, I'm to name a book that someone or something made me feel embarrassed about liking. I will answer that question, but I'm going to come at it at a slightly different angle. My usual, I never do what I'm told to do, I do something else kind of thing. But I think this is, I think this will resonate with other people. Outside of BookTube, don't you feel that embarrassment mainly happens because the real world people that you meet don't read at all? I find that. So when someone asks me what I do in my spare time and I tell them, I can see this look of something forced, right? And I can remember someone saying, oh, that's great, you read. And then they said absolutely nothing else. And the silence was so embarrassing, more embarrassing than other silences. I had to rush to fill it in. And the way I filled it in was asking the other person about their interests. And it's even worse when I mention what I've actually been reading. That makes those conversations worse, because no matter what book I mention, I'll just get blank looks, completely blank looks, unless it's a book that's been adapted for television or film. And then, of course, what happens is we talk about the film or the television series, right? That's what actually happens. No one will talk about the book. And I just have to put up with it, because the alternative would be talking to myself if I want to talk about the book, or talking to you all on BookTube. I will say, though, that reading widely, whether fiction or nonfiction, it does help me fake conversations with non-readers about the interests that they have. Because if you read enough and you read widely, and I'm always looking into all kinds of different subject areas, it's amazing how you know enough to just ask that one significant question about somebody else's interests, a leading question that lets them turn around and teach you even more. And so I found that reading is advantageous that way. I can't think of specific books. I know that I mentioned in another tag video my father being always encouraging me to read, but he did have his own book biases. He did think romances were, he probably would have thought Jane Austen was a waste of time, and maybe it was because of that I had a hard time with Jane Austen. It wasn't until the Open University basically said, you're going to read Jane Austen because you've got to write an essay on it, that I finally broke through and finished a Jane Austen and thought, oh, now I see what everyone's saying, and I understood. But I think there was a little bit of residual embarrassment about liking any book that focused on a romance. There's always that feeling that, oh, well, it won't have anything really important to say. I think that really does depend on the romance. I think there are romances that, yes, they're just for having the feelings at the time, but I do think there are others that can have something more to say about love and its strangeness. And question 2 is a book that you're embarrassed about completely missing the point of. And I don't know. I tried to think of something. I thought, yeah, surely since I wanted to do this tag so badly. But my experience seemed to be the other way around, in the sense that I often get frustrated if I believe that I've seen something in a piece of writing and people are just not seeing the same thing. And I suppose that's why BookTube exists, isn't it? BookTube's brilliant. I would not say that a video has ever shown me that I've completely missed the point of a book, but a creator will just give me some insight, and I'll have one of those, oh, yeah, moments. Yeah. It does say that. I didn't see that when I read the book. I saw something else. And I'll be super satisfied, because that book now, my experience of that book will have been made a little bit better by that video. But I did have one experience that I'll share, and this was at university. We were studying Shakespeare's As You Like It, which I'd never encountered before. I never read it because it didn't seem like a very interesting play. But as we went through it, I became convinced, because it was all about, people disguising themselves as someone else, and then you fall in love with a person that's in disguise, and then they reveal who they really are, and there's still affection there. And I felt very strongly that there was a homosexual encounter, carefully disguised, because it would have to be in Shakespeare's day. It was the death penalty, for goodness sake. So people are gonna disguise something if they're gonna say it at all. But I felt very strongly that there was a homosexual encounter between Touchstone and the character of Jacques in the play. I felt it very, very strongly, and I felt that it affected Jacques greatly, that he was in love, and it affected Touchstone in a different way. Touchstone couldn't deal with his own sexuality honestly, and so instead he sought a very quick marriage of convenience with a country girl that he was clearly unsuited for. And Jacques made fun of him, and I think he was barbing and poking at Touchstone, basically saying, you know this, you know what you're doing here. Why are you doing this? Cut it out. But it carried on anyway, and of course the play ended with Touchstone marrying this country girl, even though everyone in the play was saying, that marriage won't work, what is that about? And Jacques, I think, feeling a little bit sorry for himself. But some plays portray him as just being kind of grumpy, and I thought, no, he's not grumpy. He's been let down in love, and he's always going to be let down in love in this cultural situation, because he's not allowed to love as he wants to. But he was the one person who seemed honest. And I searched the internet, I searched for papers. I thought, surely someone else has seen this besides me. Surely someone else can see how this makes a story within the play. It's one of its many little subplots, but I couldn't find anyone. And when I did suggest it in class, my professor wasn't enthusiastic about that. I think they thought, oh, she's going a bit off on a tangent here. And maybe I was. If no one agrees with me, I thought, yeah, okay, maybe it's just my imagination, but I could see it. Well, I should do a video on it sometime, going through the scene line by line and why I think it was an encounter between these two. Anyway, we got to do question 3, which says, I'm to name a book that I would be embarrassed to be seen reading in public. You know, generally, I'm just embarrassed to be reading and have people see me reading. I don't like the outside world to know what I'm reading. And so before I worked from home, when I had to go into the office, and I used to like to read at lunchtime in the break room, and I didn't like people to know what I was reading. So I would read ebooks on my mobile phone, because that keeps it private. Ebooks are brilliant for privacy. If I did bring a paper book, I would rest it flat on the lunch table so people couldn't see either of the covers, or I'd have one of those book sleeves that you can cover the cover with. And that's because, because people don't read, they always make incorrect judgments about what they see you reading. And especially someone like me, because I read so widely. I don't read the same kind of book over and over again. So you would always get that person who asks you that question, and I'd hate this. What's your book about? And I thought, how do you answer that question if you're reading Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, right? Do you say, it's about a young guy who travels up the Swiss Alps to visit his cousin who's staying at a tuberculosis convalescent home, and he ends up staying there for 7 years? Oh, yeah. How else do you answer that question? That isn't what The Magic Mountain is about. But how do you describe it to a non-reader? What you could launch into? Well, David at Polyglot Reading has done it. He's done several videos going through the book in detail. That's what it's about. But you don't want to keep somebody listening to you for hours and hours and hours while you try to convey to them what the book is about. So you end up giving them that pathetic description, which tells them nothing at all and makes them think, wow, you read really boring books. No, I don't, but I couldn't possibly convey to you what is exciting about that book in a short form. That's why you have to read books. But it also bugs me, that when people see what I'm reading, they make a judgment about what I wouldn't read. So if I went, I don't know, in a public place and I read something, a black-spined penguin classic, we all know those, right? That people will say, oh, well, that's her taste in books, so that's what she likes, and I bet she'd never read a Robin Hobb fantasy or Zane Grey Western or a Sue Grafton crime novel, right? And conversely, if I decide, oh, yeah, let's have a bit of fun, let's read a YA novel or a cozy mystery of some kind, then I get the opposite kind of judgment. People see one book that you're reading and they think, there we go, that's the blueprint for her reading. You can never make a blueprint for my reading. I just read all over the place, but I don't want people to think, oh, there's someone not reading a serious book. I wish people would read better books these days. I thought, well, I do read some of the so-called better books. I read everything. So I don't like reading in public because I just feel, and maybe I'm overthinking this, I just feel that people are making judgments about me or about the book that aren't based on reality. I'd rather they didn't know what I was reading at all. Question 4 is a book you'd be embarrassed or you'd hesitate to buy in person. Well, when I was taking my Open University degree, to get a break from the assigned reading, I would read online fan fiction, erotic fan fiction. And I also wrote fan fiction because it was a great break from my Open University writing. And I like fan fiction and I like erotic fan fiction. Absolutely. But I'm really glad that most of it is digital. I don't know how much of it I would actually read if I had to go into a bookshop and pick up a paperback copy, unless they were very well disguised paperback copies. But you always know the person at the till knows what they really are, don't they? And again, it's because people judge erotica more harshly than they do others. They seem to judge human sexuality and pleasure as an area that can't be explored in literature, not gainfully, in a literary way. And that's strange because you can explore all other areas of human experience in much detail, repeatedly. I mean, isn't that what murder mysteries are? Let's just kill another person and see what that feels like again. See what it feels like to be the victim. See what it feels like to be the perpetrator. See what it feels like trying to solve the mystery under pressure. Let's just have those experiences again and again and again, no matter how gruesome they are. We're okay with the dark stuff being repeated, but it's funny how with sexuality we think, oh, it's a bit, it's not right to be repeating those experiences. People are less judgmental about death and horror and violence than they are about sexuality. Maybe they think, well, erotica is always badly written, and there is badly written erotica. And that's funny. If you want a good laugh, badly written erotica is absolutely hilarious. But there's good writing, as there is in any other genre. You will find very good writing in erotica. Question 5, a book you've been embarrassed not to like. Yeah, there's one, and it should be here as well. Yeah, it is Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels, which was assigned reading, not all of it. I didn't have to get through this entire book. I had to read sections of Gulliver's Travels, and I really found it deadly dull and difficult to get anything from it, to have something I could take away. And it caused me so much frustration because I thought, well, this is a recognized classic, all that, right? So I went and read Victoria Glendening's biography of Jonathan Swift. I had to know, who is this man? Why did he write this stuff? What was he trying to say, and who is he trying to say it to? And that was helpful, because then I could understand that the society that Swift lived and came to manhood in, it was a difficult time for him. He came from a good family, and he had a lot of potential to get himself a good position within the church. Unfortunately, it was a time when you had to do, well, I suppose you always have to do a lot of social game playing, don't you? If you want certain positions and certain jobs, you have to be nice to the right kind of people, no matter what kind of people the right kind of people happen to be. And Jonathan Swift simply couldn't do this. He was the kind of man, he could barely be nice to people at the best of times. He was a bit curmudgeonly anyway, but he simply would not suffer fools at all. And naturally, in positions of power, you will get fools that you have to work with if you want to get something from them. And Swift simply couldn't do that. He couldn't do that. And so he still ended up being a clergyman in Ireland, but it wasn't the kind of assignment that he wanted. It didn't make him the kind of money, the income he really needed. He did try to make some income by writing, but his writing was always to take to task those people who were in power and be sarcastic about them. And he was usually found out. That was the other problem. So although he was sarcastic and he tried to disguise, all his writings really are having a hard, critical poke at people of his time who had power. Of course, people saw through it and knew who he was talking about. That just got him in more trouble. So I get it. I was able to see him as a person within his own time, but I thought, okay, that kind of man isn't writing for the future. He isn't writing with the idea of future people reading his book. He's writing to attack right now those people who, if he felt, stood in the way of his achieving something greater with his life. And question 6 is talk about a book cover that I find embarrassing. I don't have the book anymore. When I finished it, I gave it away to a local charity that needs books to sell on, but it was Percival Everett's Erasure. And the copy that I found in the bookshop when I first encountered the novel was the one I'm going to put on screen now. Yeah. And I saw the book, and of course the cover arrests you because you think, what on earth is someone putting that on a cover for? That is a horrible picture. But then you think, okay, and you turn the book over and you realize that it's a black author. So you think, oh, okay. Now I'm more confused. Now, of course, my curiosity, my inevitable, unstoppable curiosity says, okay, who's writing this and what are they actually saying? Because this cover message is powerful, but in what I think are all the wrong ways. So naturally then I stood in the bookshop, opened it up, started reading and thought, whoa, okay. I was utterly fascinated, and I had to get over all my discomfort to take that book to the checkout and let the checkout person see what I was buying and hope that they knew who Percival Everett was and they knew just how great his writing was. And no, I'm not buying this book because I get some sort of salacious pleasure from this photograph or anything else. So that's a cover that I really found embarrassing. And question 7 is a book or books you feel embarrassed not to have read. This is quite a long list, actually. So can I just give everybody the top 2? My top 2 right now that I know I must get to reading and have not. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment and Herman Melville's Moby Dick. They absolutely must be read. I don't want any more excuses or putting off. Really, I'm just waiting to get through War and Peace because both Crime and Punishment and Moby Dick are hefty books that I feel I might want to read more slowly. So I think I'd like them to be read in the background while I read other books. So I'm probably going to wait until I get through Tolstoy's War and Peace, which I should do by the end of 2025. And you can start expecting Crime and Punishment and Moby Dick to appear on reading lists going forward in 2026. Question 8, an author or genre you're embarrassed to like or have been embarrassed to like. At first I couldn't think of anything. I suppose I always tell people about how much I enjoyed the Twilight series of books. At the time I read them, it was because my niece had read them. She was crazy about them. And I always like to read what excites other people just to find out why. And so I read all 4 of the Twilight books in less than 2 weeks. And I think that's probably how they should be read. Don't spend a lot of time. They're not books to be thought through. They're books to be just kind of felt and escaped into. I doubt I could reread them now. I really doubt it. I think I would see them a bit differently. I think I would find the patriarchal overtones a bit stronger than I felt them. When I first read it, I identified very much with Bella and her outsiderishness, and I identified with her seeking of a powerful destiny, and that was fine. Now, I think I'd be a little bit more bothered by other things. So I suppose I'd be a bit more embarrassed now, but I'm not embarrassed about the fact that I did read them. I enjoyed them very much. They were just fun, and I didn't care. Sometimes you just need fun, and that was one of those times. For 2 weeks, while I was on holiday, read all the Twilight books, had a great time. And the final question, show us or tell us all about an embarrassing bookish object. This is my embarrassing bookish object. It is a kid's Kindle Fire. I bought this for myself. It's not embarrassing because it's a kid's. I bought it in 2012 and money was really tight that year for me. And I didn't have a smartphone yet. I would later need to get one for work. So I didn't have a device on which I could read ebooks. And I was beginning to get interested in reading ebooks around that time. So Amazon were selling this 7-inch Kindle Fire, which was aimed at children. So the advertisements that come up on it are all children's toys and games and things. But they were selling it so cheaply. In the UK, it was selling for £35, and that works out at about $47. So it's a very cheap tablet. So naturally, I went ahead and bought it, uploaded the Kindle app on it. No, sorry, it would already have had the Kindle app on it. It's a Kindle. So it had the Kindle app on it, and I started reading a couple of ebooks on it. I gave up. And it's because this is so heavy. I really don't know who would want to hang on to it. Most books that I own don't weigh this much, paper books. And I just hated that weight. And then I got a smartphone and I put the Kindle app on that, and I realized, hey, I don't mind reading books on my smartphone. It's fine. It was a lot less weighty. And so this poor old Kindle Fire, which also needed a very special cable to charge. I couldn't use the cables that I was using for my phones or other devices. And I hate that. I hate that we don't have a universal charging cable that can be put in anything. I think we're getting there, but there's still all this stupidity of specialist cables for different devices. You end up losing them. So at any rate, so that is my embarrassing bookish object. It now just gathers dust. I think it still works. It was extremely slow as well. I didn't like that either. So that was another thing that caused it to just be resigned to somewhere at the back of the messy bookshelves. Did I say the last question was the final question? That's because I wasn't reading my notes properly. This is the final question, right? Which is, what words, sounds, or phrases do you feel embarrassed about overusing on BookTube or in life? There are 3 words that I hated when I use on a BookTube video, and they are so, or now, or, you know. Those are the 3 things. Now, I try to edit out those, and I'm trying more consciously now because I record in clips. It often happens that it's at the start of a clip where I'll say so, or now. And I just thought, you've got to cut that. You've got to consciously come up with some other opening word for your sentences. So you'll see me trying really hard now to do that. You know is something, apparently it's generational. Apparently, baby boomer Generation X, we tend to insert you know, if we're from North America, into the middle of our sentences randomly. And I do it. I try to edit them out when I'm doing my editing because I get so sick of hearing them. So those are the 3 words I try to avoid, but they embarrass me when I end up saying them anyway. And now I'm supposed to tag people, and I didn't make a list. I know, Meg, at Books Off the Beaten Path, you were looking for more tags to do, so I don't think you've done this one. I don't think I've seen you do it. So if you want to do the BookTube embarrassment tag, I'd watch it. Definitely. And I think I'm just going to be open now because I'm sure a lot of people have not been tagged, but I've seen a lot of versions of this video. And I'm sure if I make a list, I'm just going to end up tagging someone who's already been tagged and done it. So please, if you want to do this, if you like this tag, of course I could shout out to my usual shout outs. Joseph Francis Burton, I don't know. Does anything embarrass you? I don't think so. I think you're made of stronger stuff than that. But if you fancy doing the questions anyway, please do. Marion H., if you want to do these, go for it. I'd love to hear the video. So I think that's it. I'm going to go away now. I've just finished doing filmed 5 different videos in a row. And I'm really pleased because I did it in 3 hours. I can't believe it. So I'm really excited. Now I have to go away and start doing some editing so that I actually have some material to post. So wish me luck with that. And I wish you luck with all your bookish adventures, however you are having them. Take care, everybody. See you again soon. Bye-bye.